Welcome to Life Beyond B.S, where we ditch the belief systems and the bullshit and get real about life. Here it's about awareness, choice, and creating joy that actually lasts. No perfection, just honest talk and powerful change. I'm your host, Heather McNally, and let's get into it. Hi, friends, and welcome back to Life Beyond B.S, where we go beyond the belief systems and, the bullshit that holds you back sometimes in this world. Today, I'm super excited to talk to Ed Paley. Edward Paley is a new friend of mine, and we've had a chance to get to know each other a little bit. He has been a professional social worker for 55 years. He has presented workshops throughout the US and Canada on parenting, suicide prevention, the healing power of humor, how to cope with the death of a loved one, and trauma. Ed has been a consultant to Cancer Care of Long Island and other social service organizations. Edward was a member of the board of directors of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Long Island for 18 years. And for the past 10 years, he has been a member of the advisory council of the Ronald McDonald House, Long Island. In 2016, he was honored as the Social Worker of the Year by the Nassau chapter of the National Association of Social Work. He has been an adjunct professor at NYU School of Social Work and taught a course on death education at Nassau Community College. Edward is currently writing a book called A Boy from the Bronx, a story of triumph over tragedy. It is about the death of his father, Jack, in 1959, when Ed was only 10 years old, and how it impacted him, his three siblings, and his mother, who unfortunately became a widow at 38 with four children, 3 months to 12 years old. Ed was a consultant to a film called Come Feel the Wind about a 10-year-old girl whose father dies, and no one ever asked her how she was doing. He's been honored by the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and North Shore Child and Family Guidance Center, where he worked for 11 years and implemented a family bereavement program. And Ed has been happily married for 45 years to his wife, Ann, and they have a son together named Justin. So, Ed, thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you, Heather, and I really appreciate being here with you today.
I'm so excited. We've had some great conversation in the past, and I know this is going to be just as great, if not even better. And so I want you to take a moment and tell me, we've heard the accolades, you have done amazing things, and you really serve people. You serve humanity, and I think that's so beautiful. But who are you at your heart and soul level, Ed?
So, my heart and soul, I'm a very caring, sensitive person who my wife Annie said I'm the most giving person that she's ever met. I do things to help people. And I know in one of your recent podcasts that both the person you were speaking to and yourself spoke about being an empath. Mm. I think what I am is I enjoy life because to lose my dad at 10 and a half and all that experience and being able to have the skills and the compassion. I worked with children as young as 4 and people as old as 96. I have never not been able to connect with anyone because what comes across to people is my compassion.
Yeah.
I am not afraid to be able to cry. I am not afraid of my feminine side. I dress for me. Myself in high school and college, I worked in a men's clothing store. When I get up in the morning, I wear what I want to wear. If you don't like it, and I don't take bullshit BS from anyone. I teach people. It's amazing how people are afraid of the word confrontation and being assertive. If I didn't know how to confront in my life and to be assertive when I needed to be, both in my own life and teaching clients, patients how to advocate for themselves, teaching my son and others, teaching people how to stand up to bullies. Mm-hmm. And also when I was younger, I was bullied. So I enjoy my life. I don't need a lot of money. Mm-hmm. I am fortunate to be married to my wife that we have. Justin, who's 41 and 5.5 years ago, got married to a woman that had a child from a previous marriage. So Ann and I became instant grandparents. Warden is now 16 in 10th grade. And I love being a grandparent because I never knew my father's parents. My maternal grandparents were very important in my life. And so my first job as a medical social work assistant before I got my MSW was in a hospital working with a lot of elderly people. And I have respected them. I came dressed in a white shirt and tie, and some of them wanted to fix me up with their granddaughter. If I got another shoe stroke for you, and I have tremendous compassion.
Yeah.
It goes beyond the fancy letters after my name, and I have all the fancy letters.
Yeah. And that's beautiful.
I
Being compassionate is something that I think we're missing a little bit in this world right now. And I think that some people are starting to realize that and awaken to that. So I truly appreciate that about you. And I appreciate that you are let yourself be vulnerable. You let yourself, okay, I will cry when I need to cry. I'm going to be emotionally intelligent. That's something that I've raised two young men and I taught them to be. And I think it's so incredibly, incredibly
yes.
important.
Yeah, and
So,
I taught my son, even though it's 2026, there are still people who think if you go for therapy counseling, it's a sign of weakness.
right.
There are still people who get socialized that real men don't cry. Real men in the John Wayne persona, that if you cry, it means you're gay or weak. So
Mhm.
over the years, when I worked with boys, when I've done workshops or individual, and even men, I say, do you see anyone else in this room? And they say no. I said, this is a safe place. I said, when I need to, I cry. I said, if you need to. And so I have over the years helped many, many boys and men to be able to express their feelings, to be able, counseling therapy is not confession, but I may
Mhm.
be the only person that individuals, that couples, that families, that groups have entrusted
Yeah.
that share things with me that I consider an honor that they
Mhm.
share with me. And at the end, when they say thank you, Ed, Mr. Paley, I say I want you to hug and thank yourself because you weren't open to my suggestions. And counseling, I tell people, is a two-way street. If you expect me to sit here and resolve, if you're not going to work as hard as I do, then it's not going to work. So
Right.
I think the journey in life, I think everyone should have a therapeutic experience. I would
I
love to,
agree.
I would love to have a certain president in counseling, and it would be a challenge. But you know what? He's a human being,
Yeah.
and I know that, for example, his brother died of alcoholism, and that
Mm.
he has never smoked or drank. But I would love to have the opportunity to sit down with him and speak about life and so on, and how we.
Well, truthfully, I think that everybody in this world, no matter how emotionally healthy you are, intelligent, aware, could use therapy. So I think that that's something that the world needs to open its eyes to and see that therapy is a really positive thing and can only help you connect with yourself more. So I want to know something. You've talked about how you've worked with kids, and we're going to get to talking about your dad and what happened. But before that, before you were a social worker, professor, speaker, consultant, and all these beautiful things that you've become to this world and for this world, who was little Eddie from the Bronx?
Well, little Eddie. My father was a cab driver. He owned his own cab. When he came out of World War II, my maternal grandparents, who weren't rich, gave him the $1,000 for the medallion that goes on a cab. New York City only allows 13,000 cabs. They have never changed, increased that number. It's controlled by the New York Police Department. And we used to go. My mother never drove. We used to go on Sundays. My father worked 6 days a week. On Sundays, we'd go to Coney Island and go to a famous place called Nathan's.
Mm-hmm.
We'd go to the beach. My father because he worked. He never played ball with me, never took me to Yankee Stadium. But he would do it with my younger brother and I, take me out in the cab. And people would say, "Who's that handsome boy sitting in the front with you, Mr. Cabby?" And he'd say, "That's my son, Edward." And people would give me tips when they got out. And then he would show me the city. At 7, 8, I got to know New York City, Manhattan, other boroughs. And then at the end of the day, he would say, "Edward, you're hungry." And I would say, "I could eat." I think about that film with Denzel Washington. I'm blocking the young actor's black name, um, where he goes in search of his family of origin. And at the end of the film, he goes to tell Denzel that he found his family of origin. And Denzel says to him, "Are you hungry?" And he says, "I could eat."
Mm.
Um, my mother was a stay-at-home mom raising 4 children. Uh, so there was family time, extended family time, and then it all changed on
Yeah.
January 5th, 1959, when my father died.
Yeah. So I want you to take a few moments and tell me about what happened to your dad and how that affected you, but what you remember from that day and the, maybe few days and weeks that followed at that time.
Well, I have a vivid memory. That's why I'm able to do this book.
Mm.
I, my father never went to a doctor, didn't take out GI life insurance. When my mother wanted him, there's a place in Nassau County called Levittown. They built houses for vets, single family houses. My mother wanted him. We lived in middle class, 3-bedroom project in a very good neighborhood, Pelham Parkway, in the Bronx. My mother wanted him to buy a house. He didn't. He never took out life insurance. He'd come home at night and eat meat almost every night without his army teeth. I would sit there at the table and look at him. Coming home from school, and I can't speak for my siblings, I can only speak for me, and seeing my German Jewish doctor there, who was a very good doctor. He was like a Marcus Welby. I have had asthma since I'm 2.5. He sat up nights with me. He was also a surgeon. He took my tonsils out. He had his office in the same building that he lived in the Bronx. And when I said, "Dr. Lorenz, my father died," he said, "Yes, Edward." And it's my natural to cry and to give an injection to a 10.5-year-old boy of Valiant.
Wow.
It just, now, we weren't Orthodox or Hasidic. We were conservative Reformed Jews. It was my first funeral.
Wow.
Uh, in the Jewish religion, the mirrors are covered. There's no TV, and everyone's different. But this is what in my family. My rabbi didn't have a car, so my father's buried in Staten Island. This is before the Verrazano Bridge. It would take us, going out in the limousine to after the funeral home to bury my father. The rabbi went with us. So going back, when we're going to drop him off, he says to my mother, "Mrs. Paley, do you have my check?" I have always had excellent verbal skills. That's why I am here at 78 years of age. My verbal skills and my not being scared of anyone, that's where the Bronx boy
Mm.
comes out, and the survivor and the resilience. I said, "Rabbi, you will get your check. My father just died."
Mm.
And so I lost, his last name was Brilliant. Well, he wasn't so brilliant after.
Mm.
I was in 5th grade. Now, even if there was a social worker at the VA, there were no bereavement books. There were no groups. There were no therapists who specialized in grief like I had.
Yeah.
And so no one ever offered to help my siblings, my mother. Teachers said, "My condolences, Edward." But no one ever spoke to me about my father's death
Mm.
until I was 15, after something traumatic happened where a social worker helped me. And the journey through grief is lifelong.
Yes.
So little Eddie, before my father, was happy. Now
Mm.
lost faith in God after my father died. And when the traumatic thing happened to me at 15, I got down on my knees and I said, Daddy, you see where I am? You better be helping me. And I said, God, I'm going to stop believing in you again. And I do a prayer ritual every morning for the past 22 years. After my wife's first cousin's husband, I was very close to, died of a heart attack suddenly. And since then, after my shower in the shower, I say, good morning, dear God, my dear angels of good spirits. I say, good morning to all the people that I've loved that have died. And then I say, please bless and heal all the people. I mention their names. And then I say, have a good day in heaven. I'm not ready to join you. My spirituality, my sensitivity, my compassion for my fellow human being comes from what I went through as a child.
Yeah.
And, my mother was unable to even get me my brother, a big brother. Even back then, they didn't have enough. So when I became 21, I became a big brother to a young man and had a profound influence in his life.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I came out to work on Long Island, I started getting kids, big brothers and big sisters from divorced, separated, bereaved homes. And in 1988, I said to the caseworker, Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Long Island, how does one become a board member? I enjoy giving back.
Mm-hmm.
I get great satisfaction. Um, and a number of weeks ago at Barnes and Noble, I did in Judaism, we call it a mitzvah. I did something that gave me great compassion in helping this young man. And I just love people.
Yeah.
I don't let anyone defeat me. I only surround myself with good people, both professionally and personally. I
I love that.
don't continue relationships with anyone, whether it be family or friends or professional even, who's not a ethical, caring human being.
That's beautiful. And let me ask you a question about that. Was that always the case? Or did you have to overcome something to get to a place or recognize something to get to that place where you said, these are the people I choose to surround myself with?
But when you're a child, you have no choice.
Mm-hmm.
But as I reached young adulthood, because what was done to me at 15 by a social worker, recommending to my mother she make me a ward of the court. This is for legal law guardians. So she gave up parental rights. And what I'll share with you, at 15, and I assure you, Heather, I was never, I don't like the term crazy, but I was never psychotic, crazy, delusional. I was sent for my 15th birthday to a state mental hospital,
Wow.
and I was put on an antipsychotic called Thorazine. And I assure you that I was never, I was a bereaved boy.
Right.
And if I, when I was older, had sued this hospital, the hospital where this social worker worked, I'd be a very rich man. But
Mm.
I didn't for whatever reason. But it was a social worker when I came out after 2 months who said to me, Edward, has anyone helped you to deal with your father's death? I said, no, Miss Clark. She said, I will. I went on to graduate high school. I was elected boy leader of the senior class, vice president of the Honor Society, and I graduated high school with 10 awards. I knew that I was never I was a bereaved boy. That's why I'm a well-trained clinical social worker.
Mm-hmm.
But I have dedicated my life to studying with the best trauma and grief specialists in this country. I have over probably $2,000 to $3,000 worth of books on grief and trauma. When I make presentation, what comes through to people is not just my knowledge, but my compassion to help people to find their own journey. Because I met Dr. Kubler-Ross when I presented in Texas in, I think, 1994. And I said, Dr. Ross, you use the word resolve in your books. I said, you don't resolve death. You learn how to reconcile it and go on. And if it was a good relationship, you learn how to cope. But I have worked with people that have said, Ed, I'm glad my father, my brother, my mother, because I was abused physically, verbally, sexually. and they go right to acceptance. And because
Hmm.
I understand them, I don't. How dare you? How could you say that?
Yeah.
Everyone's journey in grief. When I work with people of different cultures, I say, tell me how people grieve in the Muslim culture,
Hmm.
in the Black culture, because there's no one right way, but you have to. If you don't learn how to cope, I have seen people get physically and emotionally sick. And so
Hmm.
what I want to do is I tell people that are, let's say, grieving or trauma, I will walk the path with you as long as you want me to. I'm not afraid of your tears, your pain, your stories. You will decide when you no longer need to see someone like me.
Hmm.
That's the way I empower anyone I've ever worked with. I empower them. I've never allowed anyone to take away the child, and I do a great Donald Duck. And I love laughing. I've
Hmm.
never laughed at anyone. I laughed with you. I've used
Yeah.
humor in therapy. I love music. Um, I am fortunate. You know, I worked very hard. I had three siblings, two have since died. I worked very hard to be Edward and be different than my siblings and my mother. And along the way, yes, I had teachers and people who cared. But ultimately, I was the one who did the hard work.
Hmm.
I was the one who, very fortunate, 46 years ago at a fundraiser, my wife, we both have on our glasses. She comes up and says, "You look like you feel like dancing." And, you know, I say the three good things that happened was, besides being born, was getting married to my wife Ann in 1981, the birth of my son Justin on October 22nd, 1984, and getting my master's from Hunter School of Social Work in 1979. I am not egotistical. I'm not tuning on my horn. I am the best social worker that I've ever met because of my compassion and empathy for my fellow human beings.
Hmm.
And I believe that this is a good world and there are more good of us than bad. And that's why I only surround myself with people that are caring. Just because you have the fancy letters after your name doesn't make you a good therapist.
Right.
Because what
Doesn't make you a good person.
exactly what I look for in people is, do they enjoy life? Are they kind
Mm.
people?
Yeah.
Do they have integrity? A friend of mine wrote a book a few years ago called Integrity When No One Is Looking. I'll get you a
Mm.
copy. And I only surround myself and deal with people that have integrity. And
That's beautiful.
as I said, I don't take BS from anyone.
Mm. I love that. So, one of the things I want to acknowledge that you mentioned was that everybody grieves differently, and there is no one way that is the correct way to grieve. I love that because in my own life, I know that I'm going to grieve differently for different people in my life, depending on the relationship that we had and all the circumstances that surround them and me and how we interacted. So when my mom passed away 9.5 years ago, it was extremely profound. And I have a lot I could say about that, but I will say that she was my best friend, my mom, my patient because I took care of her, I advocated for her, and to see her being able to make choices in her life towards the end of her life, it really deeply affected me and was a big part of the reason that I'm doing what I do now. And she's with me every single day, and I talk to her every single day.
Yes,
And there are moments that I cry, and the same thing 2 days later could make me laugh.
yes,
And that's part of the whole process is it doesn't ever go away. It just becomes part of who you are. And I know that my father, who was my abuser, there was an episode in my family where there was a big fight and I was married and out of the house already. So I get a call. It's like 6:30 in the morning on a Sunday, and my mom's on the phone and she's screaming, and my brother takes the phone and starts dialing. And I said, "What is going on?" So I ended up going over there. thinking that my father was having a heart attack, honestly, because my father was extremely overweight, had a lot of health issues, and had a um, anger problem. So I get over there and I'm thinking on the way over there, some positive things, I guess you could say that, like, wow, I can't believe he's dying and he never saw me get a house or have children or whatever. He was starting the fight and it was a disaster. And I will tell you that I didn't expect to feel those things on my way over there, but seeing what happened changed how I felt. And going through my life, I've really reconciled a lot. And I am no contact with him since after my mom passed. And honestly, by the time it happened, I wasn't angry anymore. I had really dealt with a lot of between therapy, coaching, talking to friends, everything. I dealt with a lot of the feelings that I had, and it wasn't emotionally charged anymore. So it's interesting to me that sometimes people say, well, I'll be glad when he's dead, or, she's dead because of abuse and whatnot. You don't know how you're going to feel until that moment
Exactly.
hits you. And that was something that really struck me when I got that phone call and the things I was thinking. And honestly, now I'm in such a different place, but we all have to grieve based on our own experiences, our own life, what has happened between you and that person. And you can't say there's any wrong way.
No.
There are ways that are unhealthy. And hopefully somebody can find somebody like you to help them deal with the emotion that comes up because of it and so that they can deal with it in a healthy way. But you just never know. And everybody grieves differently. And I love that you're talking about how important it is to know that each culture is going to grieve differently. Each person's going to grieve differently based on who they're with and who they're grieving. That's really important.
Because if there's something Teresa Rando. I'm not sure if she's still alive. She's a psychologist, and she coined the term complicated grief. And one of the books that I recommended was a book by Dr. Ken Doker, who was a psychologist but also was a minister. I hope that Ken is still alive. Ken was one of my mentors, and I learned from him and his book. And he and his fellow friend wrote a book about men in grief, because many men over the years would tell me, Ed, I do my crying when I'm in the car because I got to be strong for my wife. And that's why I get families to come in, and I've been trained and have advanced training in families because everyone in that family grieves differently, and I get them to accept and see and so on. But complicated grief.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say someone was having an affair, and that mistress is told, you're not welcome
Mm-hmm.
at the person's funeral who she was having an affair with, or stepchildren or grandchildren, when there's blended families,
Mm-hmm.
you're not welcome because you're not part of this family. The things that families stay to one, and money is, I forget the expression, of evil. Money I have seen in terms divide family. I'll give you just, when my maternal grandmother died, my mother had a brother 5 years older. He calls my mother and says, Evelyn, unless you allow me to go to the vault with you and Edward, I was on the vault, I will no longer speak to you after the funeral. So I called him up, and that's what I mean, that I don't take BS from anyone. And I said, Melvin, I said, you want to know what's in the vault? $5,000 that will cover the cost. And he had two oldest daughters that were already married, and an old European necklace with diamonds in it, old European diamonds. And your mother's designated those for me and my siblings. My wife's engagement ring is one of my grandmother's stones. I said, that's what's in the vault. I said, go F yourself. And he never spoke to my mother again. I invited his daughters to my engagement party. Of course, they never responded. So I used to take my mother. In the Jewish religion, you're supposed to go before the Jewish holidays to the cemetery to pay your respects to the deceased.
Mm-hmm.
So I would go different times of years, and I would take my mother, my maternal grandparents, and my grandmother's sister are buried in the same place. So I'm walking around one day, and I say, because there's footstones, not the big stones. And I'm,
Mm-hmm.
oh, come here. Your brother's here. Say hello to your Melvin. I have found what families do to one another after
Mm.
death. And also, you speak about anger. See, if one doesn't learn how to deal with anger, not just from the death of a loved one or if they were abused, if you carry that anger in you and you don't learn how to cope with it, I have seen again people of all ages, rich, poor, middle class, all ethnic. I've seen people get physically sick,
Mm-hmm.
develop breast cancer, and
Mm-hmm.
also get emotionally sick. So I feel that as a clinical social worker that has the skills, that I want to help someone to develop coping, whether through cognitive behavioral therapy, whether it's through havening and other forms of therapy, that they don't have to be stuck and feel my life is over or how could I go on. I'll just share with you my father, 2 days before he died, I had promised a cousin. There used to be these Long Ranger and Roy Rogers figurines on a horse. And I had promised my cousin one, but I changed my mind. My father says, you got to give it to him. I said, no, I don't. So he bends the hula hoop and beats me with it. My mother, and again, I don't know if this was done for myself. My mother was a little lady, but I was a 10 and 11-year-old boy. She would say at times, Edward, get undressed, get in the shower, and she would take a strap and beat me.
Mm-hmm.
I swore, if and when I became a father, that I would never physically or verbally abuse my son or daughter. Did I say at times to Justin over the years, F you, but I apologize. I never abused my son. I only have one child. I tell Justin that I hope to the day I die, you will always kiss me and that you will love me. And my son and I enjoy when we go to Yankee Stadium. You know, first time we went to Yankee Stadium and we're Monument Park. And I start crying. He says, Daddy, why are you crying? I said, Justin, for me to share this with you, when he was bar mitzvah and we're getting his suit, we're in the dressing room. Daddy, why are you crying? Justin, Grandpa Jack was only in my life for 10 and a half years. I said, for me to do these things with you, to go to other sporting events, to go out to eat with you, it gives me great pleasure.
Yeah.
I, like I said, I enjoy the little things. You don't need a lot of money to go to a park, to do different things, to go to outdoor concerts. And that's what I mean about enjoying life, laughing. I
Mm.
don't know if you, it's amazing how many people don't. There's a singer who's 87 years old. His name is Dion. And so people said, you want to see Celine Dion? You want to see Dionne Warwick? I said, no, Dion DiMucci. Dion, Run Around Sue, Teenage in Love. So a
Mm.
place in Nassau County called Westbury Music Fair. So last Saturday night, at 87 years old, Dion, who used to lived in the Italian section of the Bronx, Arthur Avenue, and it was Dion in the Belmonts, and then he became just Dion, performed for an hour and a half.
Wow.
And I got two T-shirts that I wear proudly. One is just his name, Dion, and the other is his picture. And I love music. I used to play
Yeah.
the drums when I was in high school. I play harmonica now. Dan got me a little drum thing that you could play on. I get great pleasure. I learned how to go out. I exposed myself to Broadway,
Mm.
to certain things. Ann doesn't like to go out and eat alone. I expose myself to going out and eating alone. And if they sat me near the kitchen or the bathroom, and that's what I mean by being assertive, I said, listen, I'm a good tipper. I said, you ain't putting, that old baby in the corner. I said, unless you have another table, I'm leaving. And
Mm.
some restaurants I left, but
Yeah.
other restaurants, because I asserted myself, they gave
Mm-hmm.
me another table. And that's what I also help people to do. I believed in myself. I knew that Edward Ira Paley was never a crazy boy, that I was a good boy. Ann doesn't understand why I still see. I don't think you get over trauma. You learn how to deal with it. I don't think, and I've been trained in EMDR and everything. I have discussed this. I don't think you ever get rid of the trauma, but the trauma doesn't control me. But
Right.
at times, in the shower, it just happens. I need to curse these people. I need that social. How dare you do that to me? How dare you put a 15-year-old boy on Thorazine? Who did I see at Rockland State? Mostly black and Hispanic boys who were not crazy.
Mm.
We live in a society where there's racism, there's anti-Semitism. The way we treat one another. Um, when Ann and I go out once, twice a week, why are people even out? Everyone's on their cell phone. Everyone. When we used to eat, we didn't have the TV on. I tell people, if you watch the news continuously or for long periods, you will wind up with PTSD indirectly.
Oh, yes.
I It goes back. What's in our control? It's in
Yeah.
our control for you and I to have connected when David did about a month ago, and we saw in each other. And I was honored, and I'm honored to know you and to know, and for you to ask me to do this means the world to me. I've been telling people about you. I showed Ann this morning before she left to pick up her granddaughter. She's at a final exam. I said, let me show you Heather. I love, and I remember asking you when we first spoke after about how you make the decision on your hair. I love that you are an individual, that you take care of yourself. I don't need people. You don't like my clothes? Do I? I dress for Edward.
Right.
I go to my bagel place because Ann's not a morning person to read the papers. I don't need coffee to get started. I connect with people there.
Mm.
I smile at people who smiles back. I've done a few mitzvahs there. I met a young lady who's very talented. She's single. Her landlord's trying to get her out because he sold the building and he's intimidating her. And so I have taught her how to be confrontative, to be assertive. And I'm not talking fisticuffs. It's amazing how many people, even millionaires, because I've done life coaching also, businesses, who think if you confront or you assert yourself, that there's something wrong, and how
Yeah.
dare you assert. I always ask for raises each year. If I didn't, I don't know if I would have gotten it.
I love what you're talking about. Now, first of all, I'm going to say connection is everything. Connection. So I took brain science, and my instructor, who was brilliant, said there are six pillars to a healthy brain. And the second most important, only behind sleep, is connection. That we're social creatures and we are meant to do this life together. So when you look at the world, we're not supposed to be against each other and fighting each other. We're supposed to be in living in community with each other, supporting each other, helping each other. And so I love that you say that you go places specifically and position yourself to meet people and talk to people if you're out by yourself. My boys, who are now, one will be 24 in a few weeks and the other one's 20, we would go out to grocery stores, shopping, wherever we would go. And I'd always be talking to people. And they used to say things to me like, why do you have to talk to everybody? Or who was that? And I'd be like, oh, I don't know. Or, oh, well, I just learned her name was Anne, or something like that. And they're like, but you didn't even know them? No. Now, if you look at, younger Heather, when I was a young girl and teenager and early 20s, I was painfully shy, or that's what I thought. What I realize now is I was taught these belief systems of you are not to be seen and heard because I was abused. You are nobody. You are worthless. You're not supposed to be just go hide somewhere. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say. So I internalized that completely. And I thought everybody, nobody wanted to know me. Nobody wanted to. And so I was actually asked things like, has the cat got your tongue? Do you speak? Because I was so painfully quiet and shy. But now I realize that it was because of the belief system I had that I was worthless and I was not meant to be seen or heard, and nobody cared what I had to say. Fast forward to now, it used to be for me, confrontation was ugly because it always resulted in me being wrong, me being beaten, me being bullied, me being punished. Now confrontation, I still don't love it, but what I do know is no one's going to stand up for me. I have to do that.
Exactly.
Nobody's going to respect me if I don't respect myself.
Exactly.
And that standing up for yourself is just owning who you are and showing people how to treat you.
Yes.
So that's crazy important. So I think that if you're going to be a good person to other people, most likely other people are going to treat you well as well. And the people who are not, a lot of times have these problems that they have not dealt with, which is why they do need a therapist. And I don't say that to be flippant. I say that because they'll live a happier life if they could deal with the issues that are making them be angry and hurt and confrontational in a bad way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why, and I'm sure you've done this, and that's why when I've done work with organizations, it's the same in terms of being able to work with the CEO and explain why, uh, if your employees, it, morale is important. And when I worked at this agency on Long Island, the morale, because it starts at the top, was not good. So they bring in a psychologist to meet with staff. I think they paid the psychologist. This is in the late '80s, early '90s, $10,000, $15,000, and then she did a report. And I said, I'll tell you why the morale is down, because it starts at the top. If you don't treat you, I was the assistant director of an agency for 11 years. I supervised over my professional career 35 students, and I got rid of 5 of them because I take having an MSW very seriously. My wife always says to me, she's a retired occupational therapist, why when you introduce the show to people and they ask you what you do, you say you're a professional social worker? I said, Ann, I earned every one of those letters after my name. I subscribe to a code of ethics. I have integrity and morality. And I told people, you're never going to find a better supervisor. I said, be straight with me. You need a mental health day? Tell me.
Mm.
I said, there's a reason why I asked you to do process recording, because it's my way of teaching you. I says, you want to play games with me? The only one you're hurting is yourself.
Mm.
I said, I'm here to help you to grow and learn. You're never going to find a better supervisor, because in me, they got a very skilled, well-trained, experienced, caring social worker. So I had a student one year, at the end of the year, she said, Ed, I don't know if I could terminate with my clients. I said, you're lucky you have me. I will help you to terminate. You can't just disappear. And
Yeah.
she would sit in sessions, and I didn't do therapy with my students. She would cry. She trusted me. She trusted and knew that I wasn't going to use it against her. I don't use things against when people, my staff that I trained or that I supervised would say things. They knew that they could trust me, and I was not going to use it, because if it got in the way, I would tell them, "Are you in therapy?" And then I would say, as a supervisor, we're going to discuss how you got to deal with it, because if it gets in the way of you treating these clients, then you're doing it as a service to yourself and to your clients.
Mm.
And I tell people, and there's a form of therapy called hugging therapy. You don't have to go. I hug myself every day. Ann and I, when we make the bed in the morning, Ann says, you got to do it for 30 seconds, because John Tesh says that 30 seconds is the minimum to get you would know, the brain and the
Yeah.
doctor's going. I could be sitting at the bagel place, and there's something called havening. And havening, I'm sure, is this, where you do this. You can look it
Hmm.
up on YouTube, and therapists show you don't have to go spend tons of tapping. Tapping
Yeah.
recirculates the brain. And so in the sense, during the day, sometimes something comes up, and I hug myself.
Hmm.
I say, Edward, and that's where my humor. I say, Edward, you're okay.
Yeah.
See,
And
yes,
and that's so important. Like I will say to my sons, like I'm a hugger. Everybody I know that knows
Oh
me
my,
knows I'm a hugger. And when I meet somebody new, I say, "Is it okay if I hug you because I'm a hugger?" And most people are very
yes.
welcoming to that. And I think that I mean, it's scientifically proven that 20, 30 seconds of a hug will literally change your body and change
And it doesn't
your,
mean that you hug someone.
yeah.
People say all men are sexist and all white people are racist. I have never abused a woman or anyone in my life because I was abused. I was not going to abuse because, and that's where therapy. But again, I believe in bibliotherapy. There are great books out there.
Hmm.
See, I think there's a danger when we put people on pedestals.
Oh, yeah.
Tony Robbins, other people. I think we're all human beings.
Hmm.
No one has all the answers. And there's a danger when you I'm never allowed as a therapist to have any of my clients put me on a pedestal.
Mm.
I say, I'm here to help you with the journey. Thank you for trusting me, but you got to do your part and we'll do it
Yeah.
together.
We're
And
all human.
yes, in my 55 years, and I worked with some difficult people. I
Mm.
worked with a young man for 11 and a half years, and every week he spoke to me about suicide. And I'm very involved in suicide prevention on Long Island. In my 55 years, I've never had anyone take their life. I am not in anyone's head, but I'm a skilled. See, that's why I'm not a big fan of Zoom therapy.
Hmm.
A lot of therapists since COVID have given up their offices. I saw a few people on Zoom during COVID. I decided eventually, for different reasons, to refer them out. I have to see people in the flesh. Things happen for a reason. It was meant for us to connect. So I'm sitting in a place getting a smoothie, and it's called the Early Bird Cafe. And the tables are close together. There's these two young men. So one of them is busy on his laptop, and the other, a young white man, we get to speak. And I said, what do you do? He says, I'm my third year at Hofstra Law School. I said, my son went to Hofstra. I said, what are you concentrating? He said, divorce. And he said, what do you do? I said, I'm a clinical social worker who specializes in grief and trauma. He said, Ed, I have a friend who tried to take his life, and he's now living in my basement. My parents are allowing it, they know him. And I said to him, I will see him. And a few Saturdays ago, in a park in East Meadow, early in the morning, I met with this young man and the other man, Matthew, the one who I met initially.
Hmm.
I'm a big believer, as I said, in bibliotherapy. I bought some great books, a journal, and other things to give to him. And I sat for over an hour. I assessed whether I needed to recommend hospitalization. I heard why, again, he was traumatized by his parents. He was lied
Mm.
to. He would ask, why do I and my sister have different names? None of
Mm.
your business.
Yep.
Go F yourself. This young man is 32. He had a plan that he learned
Mm.
on. See, modern technology is great, but
Yeah.
YouTube and the computer, and I think AI is great, but we got to look at it. Um,
It has its place, but you have to put it in its place.
and so he uh, called Matthew and said, "I'm going to kill myself." And Matthew said, "Get in your car." He lived in New Jersey. The whole time from New Jersey to Long Island, Matthew and him spoke on the phone, and he doesn't have these suicide thoughts anymore. He didn't need to go to the hospital. He's got a job on Long Island. Matthew's parents are fantastic. They like Ron. They're allowing him for now to stay in the basement. I got him referred into an agency that's free. I pride myself. I know more about resources than anyone.
Mm.
I could get on the phone. I would get on the phone over the years with the government. People say, "How do you do that?" I said, "Because I'm an effing social worker." And I
You
said,
found a way.
"See, I tell people, and this is what I taught Justin, my nephew I helped raise. If you don't ask, you're not going to know. The
Right.
worst that will happen is someone will say no."
Yeah.
But and see, I tell people, the show Survivor, say, you're looking at a true survivor. If I didn't learn how to take care of Edward Paley, if I didn't learn how to assert myself and confront and speak up and advocate for all people, and that comes from what was done to me, the injustice and the trauma that I was put through. And to do that, and so I have explained to Anne, because she comes from a good family, and she never experienced the trauma that I. So I have learned how to cope. I don't obsess with it. It hasn't got. I see. If you're healthy, I believe you marry a healthy person.
Mm.
If I had married some of the people that I dated, I'd be divorced today.
Yeah.
I knew that I was a healthy, and like I said, I always treated anyone I've dated. And do I have prejudices? Yes. I will never know what it's to be black or Hispanic or Indian or Muslim. But I have always treated people with respect. I love getting to know. When I go out to eat, I ask if people, how long have you worked? Are you still in school? And
Mm.
my father would tell me, Edward, the best tippers are the people who live in Harlem and the South Bronx. The worst tippers are the people that are rich.
Mm.
We used to go in the city for haircuts, and we went for lunch after, and he said to me many years ago, when he was a teen, he said, Daddy, one thing that you taught me, if you get good service, you get good tips.
Mm.
I love meeting people. I enjoy doing mitzvahs and helping people and advising people how to. My friend, who's also going through a housing situation where they're trying to get him out, he said, Ed, for the first time, I'm 63 years old, I finally advocated and confronted this landlord. I said, Alan, what took you so long? All my jokes when I do stand-up comedy, all my 13 jokes are clean. There's
Yeah.
nothing funny about sexist and racist and homophobic and political jokes. See, I could sit down with anybody and have a discussion about
Hmm.
politics, about as long as you respect me and listen to me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the biggest problem, as you see, in America now is loneliness.
Mm.
And I've had 20-year-old people come to me over the years and said, Ed, I don't know how to socialize. I don't know how to look someone in the eye. When I was in eighth grade, I went down to Tampa to stay with an uncle and his family for a week. And so I was 13, 14, and he said to me, Edward, always shake a hand firmly and always look someone in the eye. So
Mm.
over the years, I had kids stand on chairs, and I told them about my Uncle Jack. I have adults who shake hands, and I do it in nice ways. And I said, come on, you can do better than that.
Yeah.
Kids,
Yeah.
what I would do, oh, you're killing me. I am proud of the man that I am at 78 years young.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Love that who you are. See, I tell people I get high on the time. You know what I get
Mm.
high on? I get high on life. I'm
Yes.
laughing. Man, seeing Dion last week.
That's so powerful.
He's a boy from the Bronx. So he goes, yo. So I yelled out, yo. He says, you got a minute? And when he first came out, I think the place holds 3,000 people. And I yelled out, Dion, I don't care what people think. I am not doing anything wrong. Over the years, I
No.
had supervisors who, when I worked as a medical social work assistant before I went to Bronx, Lebanon, I covered the ER. And there was this kid that was in hysterics. And I got down on my knees and I did Donald Duck. So I had a supervisor who was an effed up individual. And he said to me, Ed, what are you doing? I said, I'm preventing this kid from winding up in the ER like his mother.
Mm.
I love doing play therapy.
Yeah.
I enjoy, like I said, during COVID, I watched old Johnny Carson rerun. I discovered new comedians, old comedians.
Hmm.
I, to this day, I love watching different groups. I love eclectic music. I enjoy going to outdoor. Like I said, Ann and I live within our means. I never thought I was going to own a house. And in 1991, we got this house, and Each day when I go get the paper, I look up and I say to my friend God, I say, thank you. Thank you for allowing Ann and I, to give Justin, the Bronx is still a good place. I will always be a Bronx boy. I get upset when people knock the Bronx.
Mm.
And the way it came up at the beginning of my book title. So at the bagel place, over the years, one of the owners would say to me, Eddie, when you write your book, it should begin a boy from the Bronx. Because you're always telling people you're a boy from the Bronx. I'm
Hmm.
more street smart than anyone I know. I teach people how to be street smart. Where do you put your wallet? Where do you put your money? When I go in the city, if you approach me and I think you're a good person, I'll answer your question. But if I think you're going to do something, I put on a face that you're going to run from me. That's what I mean. I always am aware of who's around me.
Yeah. And that's important. That's very important in today's society. And I have a question about that. So you're writing this book and it's called A Boy from the Bronx. When people finish reading this book, you're writing it still, and I know you're going to get it done soon because
David,
it's
and
coming out
David,
of you.
as you know, is a prolific writer. David is helping me.
Nice.
So I've been writing this in my head and journal for 50. I know in the next 6, 8 months that this book is going to happen, and I am
That's
going to
great.
do a book signing party, and I am going to, because my story, you don't say to a 10-and-a-half-year-old boy, let alone when I was 13,
Right.
you're the man of the family. You don't do to a child that's grieving
Mm.
and send them to a mental hospital and
Yeah.
put them on an antipsychotic.
Yeah.
So thank God for Miss Clark.
So what are you hoping that people are going to learn about their own lives in reading your story?
I empower, they'll see, never give up.
Mm.
Always believe in yourself and
Beautiful.
find yourself and develop the coping mechanisms that you need. If you don't get it, there's someone in your husband and your boys. There's a guy named John Lee. John Lee is a poet. He's written with Robert Bly. He's done stuff on men. He's a recovered alcoholic. He's a therapist. He's a fantastic human being. And John Lee wrote a lot of books. He's been on
Hmm.
Oprah and all. One of his books, he's written about men in anger, and he also wrote a book about growing yourself up. On the cover is a young girl who's dressed in an acidic suit, and he said it was his worst seller. Why? He says, Ed, people say they want to grow themselves back up, but they don't.
Mm.
I Every day is a journey for me. I
Yeah.
tell people that each day when you wake up, even if you're in pain, even if something bad, you're still
Yep.
alive. And
And there's something in that that I think is really important that I actually realized when I was in high school, which I now go, wow, I was wiser than I realized I was, is that life can be so beautiful, but we have to have the difficult moments and the harder things happen in our lives to teach us, but also to make us recognize what beauty there is in the world. That if everything was just wonderful all the time, would we even appreciate it? I think that going through the hard things, and even though they can suck and you wish you hadn't had the experience, it teaches you something if you allow yourself to learn the lesson. And it shows you when the beautiful things are happening, how appreciative you can be of those moments.
Heather, what you just said, when I first told my friend Tony, who was a psychologist years ago, we worked at a community mental health center together. And once we're in the car, and I tell him what happened after my dad died. And he said, Ed, I'm sorry that happened to you, but that explains why you are who you are.
Hmm.
And I believe that because of my experiences, that I am the kind of man and therapist and father and husband and friend. I love people.
Mm.
I enjoy. And says that I have taught her how to be more outgoing, and
Hmm.
I don't tell anyone what they should or shouldn't do. But I help Justin and Ann to not be afraid to confront or advocate. Just a quick story. So when we lived in Pelham Park, where there were stores in the neighborhood, so we used to go to this cheese store, and it was owned by Russian Jews. And one time the cheese didn't taste good. So my wife brings it back, and they said, "What do you want us to do?" So I go in there and I say, "What, she got her money back." And I just went in. I said, "We won't be coming here anymore." And we like them, they liked us, going 2, 3 times a week. I said, "You got to be kidding. What did we want?" I said, "I don't know what they do in Russia like this, but I says in America, you know, why would we come back and say that the cheese didn't taste right?" So I tell people, when you get food, if you're paying for it, don't sit there and eat a raw burger if it's not cooked the way you like.
Right.
Serve it back. And if they don't want, then say, "I'm never coming here again," and don't leave a tip. That's
Yeah.
what I mean. Enjoy life, advocate for yourself, live life to the fullest. John Lee, in terms, see, that's what I mean about his books. He teaches people how to get angry and appropriate, because people are socialized. In this family, we don't laugh. In this family, we don't discuss death. I
Mm.
worked with a young man years ago. He was 23. He got involved in alcohol, drugs. When he was 15, his father jumped out the window. He was Irish Catholic. In his family, the father's suicide and death was never discussed. And he finds me, and for a year we worked together. He is a policeman in Nassau County now. He has 2 kids. And he said to me when I ran into him at a Hofstra basketball game, he says, "Ed, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be one." So that's what I do. I don't tell people. When I use myself or I tell stories, they're based on helping people to get unstuck, to grow,
Mhm.
to enjoy life, to not let anyone. We all have adversities. I know my father's proud of me. I speak to him every day. There are certain songs. Whenever Eddie Fisher, "Oh my papa," to me was so wonderful. It's 68 years. If I hear that song, I start singing it in my head. Those tears come.
Mm.
Luther Vandross did a song about fathers. When I see movies and shows and I see fathers, a friend of mine from my synagogue, who paid a shiva call, I saw him about a month ago at a brother dinner, and I said, "How's your father?" Because he would post pictures on Facebook. His father looked just like him. He's 65. His father died 2 days later. He was 94. And when I say to people, I said, no matter when it occurs, but I said, and they understand when I tell them how old I was when my dad died, I said, "Thank God you had your father for 65 years of your life and that he lived to be 94." And I said, grief is never easy, but at least he's no longer in pain. He's reunited with your mother and grandparents. See, I believe in heaven. I believe in hell. People say, "How do you know?" I said, "I don't know, but I'll find out when I
But
die."
it's about belief,
That
right?
helps me. That helps me each day.
Yeah.
I believe that bad people, Hitler and other people, they're not going to heaven. But I know when my time is up, he's going to welcome me. And my father don't care. When people die that I like, I say, "Daddy, clean that cab, show them around, and introduce them to their loved ones."
Love it.
Helps me.
Yeah. Love
Like I said, I don't obsess about what happened to me.
it. Mm.
But how can you just let it go? And that's why I've had discussions with EMDR, that you're going to recirculate. No, it's never leaving me, but it doesn't define me. It doesn't. It
Right.
allows me to be who I am,
Hmm.
and it's allowed me to enjoy life and to do
Yeah.
nice things for people.
I think everything that happens to us in this world in some ways can be happening for us if we like to look at it that way. If you choose to look at learning lessons like losing my mom, the entire experience, it was years, years, years long, like at least a decade long. And do I wish I had my mom? Absolutely. But
Of
at the
course,
same time, I can look at everything that we experienced together and that I experienced with her and I learned from it. And so I can appreciate what I had, but also say, well, these are the things that I learned, whether it be something I don't want for myself, something I do want for myself, the power of choice that I learned from it, all the beautiful things that I learned from it. So it stays with you. Everything that you experience in life becomes part of who you are and can inform you on who you want to be. And so that brings me to you talking about being a good person and helping people. I know that you like to do random acts of kindness. So I want you to tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I'm going to give you an example, Heather. I like going to Barnes and Noble and sitting there and reading. I sometimes, buy the books and magazines. I get myself, I don't need coffee to get my day, but I'll get a coffee or a cold drink. So about a month ago, I'm online waiting to order a drink. And this young man, uh, these counselors bring in these developmentally disabled adults, young adults, and for an hour or two. And so this young man who looks just like LL Cool J, he's asking the cashier, how much is this? The candy and cookies. So I said to him, would you like something? He looks at me. I said, listen, I'm a social worker. I only do what I want to do. Would you like to know? So I sit down and he comes over and I introduced myself. I said, my name is Ed. He said, my name's Eric. And he had a book in his hands. And it was all about LL Cool J.
Oh,
And he said, can I get this? And I said, yes. And then this young lady, we went up to the cashier that she didn't have as good verbal skills as Eric. And she had two CDs in her hand. She said, can I get these, sir? I said, yes. I said, what's your name? The counselor said to me, because I introduced myself to him, he says, you don't have to do this. I said, I only do what I want to do. So I go up to the cashier, we get it. When Eric sees me now, he comes over and he hugs me. He asked me if I could be his case manager. I said, Eric, I'll be your friend. I said, I don't work at your, the place that you live at, but I will be your friend. One of the young ladies that works at Barnes and Noble, in the coffee area, I've gotten to know her. So when I go in, I said, has Eric been in? And she said, every time he comes in, Ed, he asks, have you seen Ed? A few weeks ago, I said, Eric, you want anything? So he said, can I get a coffee and a breakfast sandwich? So these two other ladies, I said, you want coffee? It's not going to break me. Do you know how good I feel when I do these random acts of kindness?
yeah.
Like I said, my wife Ann says I'm the most giving person. By right, if I found the script, I should be a self-centered, narcissistic, borderline. I never abused alcohol, other than smoking weed twice in college. I have never done any drugs. Justin has never gotten drunk or done drugs. I value this brain. I don't want to destroy it because I don't want. I was in high school. I had a friend, 1966. He OD'd on heroin. In college, I had a friend who took LSD once. Who'll never come out of the mental hospital.
Mm,
I value my life,
yeah.
and I fought. My older sister was a sociopath. She went to jail for a year. She was involved in the mafia, running numbers. I worked hard to be different than my siblings, and I was not going to let what happened to me at 15 by these son of a guns destroy. And along the way, like I said, Jennifer Clark and a teacher when I started 10th grade. He was my homeroom teacher for 3 years. He was a history teacher, Joe Krause. And he said to me, took me aside the first day, he said, Edward, I know what happened to you. You need anything, I'm here. So
Mm.
before Christmas, 10th grade, nowadays he and I both be arrested to be on the TMZ. I said, Mr. Krause, what do you like to drink? He said, Edward, what do you ask? I just told him, I said, I like scotch. So I told my mother, go get a bottle of scotch. She wrapped it up. I got to school early. I wrote a card. Dear Mr. Krause, happy holidays. And I get there. There was no metal detector. I give it to him. He says, Edward, what are you doing? To this day, when I do things for people, I say, just say thank you.
Mm, yeah.
And for
People, I feel that people have a hard time accepting, but I think that if you could look at it from your own point of view of, I have a gift to give somebody and I'm so excited to give it to them. If we could put ourselves in that position and see the joy that we can give to somebody by accepting that gift, that can make a huge difference in that person's
you
day.
know what also had that show Touched by an Angel.
Mm,
I believe that you and I and David and people that are helping other people, that we are designated by God, he or she, to be his her discipline.
Mm.
I really believe that I am one of the people that God has designated to help other people. And
I,
so my being involved in 10 years ago, the Ronald McDonald House, Long Island,
mm,
heard about me. They don't have any social work on the advisory board. Big Brothers didn't have a social worker. I bring a uniqueness, and
mm,
I work. We did 2 events a year. I co-chair the Comedy Night fundraiser. And this year I told them I'm choosing all 10 comedians, including me. I'm not coming out for 2, 3 jokes because I'm funny. And I go out. I get 23 raffle prizes. I get great satisfaction out of giving back and helping people, and helping people to believe in themselves,
mm.
to and to not let anyone BS them or abuse them.
Yeah.
And
So
and
beautiful.
and so when I work with people, adults, I say I'm a mandated reporter. If you
Mm,
abuse your child or you abuse your elderly parents, I won't do it behind your back. I explain why I'm doing what I'm doing because I tell them I'm not going to jeopardize my license. I'll teach you how to be a good mother, father, but you
hmm
can't. I tell parents over the years when I do parenting, I said if you're going to punish your child physically, make sure they have pants on, do it with an open hand, and stop at 1 and 2. But I tell them, how do you know you're going to stop at 1 and 2 if you're so angry? And what kind of message is it when you physically punish a child? There's a poster I have hanging up to this day, and it's in English and Spanish. Children learn what they live. If a child is with criticism, they learn to condemn. If a child lives with acceptance, they learn to love. I learned how to love. And my mother, I came to understand why she listened to a social worker and made me a ward of the court. My mother, 38, to be a widow. My father was 52. And then 3 months later, we're coming from the dock to get the bus to go home, and a car went through the light. And my mother spent 6 months in a hospital. She could have died. She could have given us up. She could have had a breakdown. I came to understand, at 38, to be a widow. There were no books on widows.
No.
There were no support groups. So my
Yeah.
mother died at 87 in 2007. And to the day she died, she had all her sense, and she had a good sense of humor. I came to understand that a therapist once said to me, why do you still have a relationship with your mother? I said, why? Because when I was sick when I was a kid, with scarlet fever, when I would vomit, the person who held my head, the person who took care of me was my mother.
hmm
So we all have limitations.
We're all flawed human beings.
Exactly. But like I said, I said, if and when I become a parent, I would never, never physically, and that's when
Same.
people say, well, I was abused. I say BS.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
for legalized marijuana. I'm not for legalized gambling. And I'm certainly not for bail reform. When I've had people say to me, well, or you hear people say, well, my mother just died. That's why I got in the car drunk and I
Mm,
killed 3 people. I'm sorry. I don't have sympathy for them.
yeah.
I could work with people who have abused adults as long as I tell them, I'll teach you how, but if you do it again,
Yeah.
I said I will not work with anyone. I will not work with people who abuse children.
Yep.
I don't want to hear your BS. Well, I was abused.
Yep.
And I always tell parents and grandparents, know who your child's teacher, therapist, clergy is. Be able to go somewhere. I
hmm
tell parents when they bring their kids, don't you want to know about my credentials? And then I say, my daughter-in-law believes in therapy, and my granddaughter's been, and my son just started because I want him to learn how to express anger and stuff. So uh, I say to my daughter-in-law, Autumn, see a social worker, say, says, I don't know what, I said, oh, Jenny, you're a bright young lady. I want people to, I'm proud of my credentials. I'm
hmm
proud of all those fancy letters. I earned all those letters. But the proof is, how do one conduct themselves? I
Yes.
am a damn good in my 55 years. When I think back, all the people that I helped, that wanted me to help them, children, adolescents, you know, I worked with adolescents who sat, go F myself. So we could sit here for the next 45 minutes. But I said, if you allow me to help you. And I never eventually had people who didn't allow me to help them because they saw in Edward Paley
Mm.
of my compassion and my skills and I join in reality. People say, "What kind of therapy do you do?" I say, "I do reality therapy." When I worked for an
Mm.
adolescent that joined the gang because he got jumped, and I helped him to figure out how he could still belong but never do crazy things.
Yeah.
I keep in touch with him, and he says to me, "Ed, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here today. I'd be dead." And
Mm.
that's what I mean by the street smarts,
That's
drunk sports.
so powerful. Yeah.
I care deeply about my fellow human beings, no matter
Mm.
what your ethnic group is, and no matter what you look like. I love meeting people.
Yeah.
I learn from them.
And I want to say that comes through in your energy and the way you speak. It's obviously passion of yours, and I love that so much. So I want to say that this has been amazing, and I think I could talk to you for 6 weeks and we can just keep going. But our time is coming to a close. So I do have one final question for you, Ed.
Yes, yes, I
After everything that you've experienced in this life, from being abused, from losing your father at such a young age, from the trauma that you've had, and then from the beautiful things that you've experienced in helping other people and serving other people in the world, what does living a life beyond the BS mean to you?
it means enjoy your life because none of us knows what tomorrow brings. And when your time is up, no matter who the F you are, no matter how much money you have in your pocket, whether you're Ted Kennedy, John McNally, President Trump, no matter what you're in the Pope, so enjoy each day because you don't know what tomorrow brings. And live life to the fullest.
Yes.
Go out and laugh with people, not at people. Go out and do at least one act of kindness each day. Go out, take a walk, enjoy the sun, get to know new people, learn from them, and never stop growing, never stop laughing. And I think about that coach who died, the famous coach, Jim Bellaro, I think it was, and who died of cancer. And again, never give up. Resilience, and that's what I teach people. Be a leader. When you see, I hate bullies, and when you see people being abused, don't just stand there. Speak up. Don't let anyone bully another person. Don't be afraid to speak up. I'll just say a quick. So when I was in Jacoby, before I went to Rockland, I used to come back on Wednesday. I was the only one that was allowed to go to school on the outside, but I never told people, by the way, at night I go back to a crazy place. So we would have on Wednesdays meetings with the adolescents, and the staff would be out behind a one-way mirror, and two people would be conducting. So these two twin brothers who were juvenile delinquents, I don't think they were crazy. So they said to all the kids, "No one's saying anything today." So one of the staff says, "Can anyone tell the new kids what we do here?" So I raise my hand. One of the twins picks up a chair and throws it in my head. I I ducked. So after the staff saying, "Edward, that was brave." No, I don't let college. I went to college 66 to 71, so Kent State shut down. So Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin, part of the Chicago Seven, comes up to Hunter College in the Bronx, and they say to all the students, "Follow us." So I stood up and said, "Why should we follow you?" Someone said, "Do you know who you're speaking to?" I said, "I know who they are." I enjoy life to the fullest. I am not a rich man, but what I am rich with is a beautiful wife, my son, my daughter-in-law, my granddaughter, people like you and David, and of all the people in 55 years that have allowed me to walk this path of life with them and help them to cope, to confront, and to be a good human being. And that's why I do. And I hope to God, I'm 78 years young. My goal is to make it to 90 with this, my brain, my mouth, and to continue to do comedy and just enjoy and surround myself with people like you,
I love it. Thank you so much. Such wise words that everybody can take to heart. And I want to thank you so much for being here with me today and being vulnerable and sharing so much of who you are. It's
Well, I
been
thank
my
you.
pleasure. It's
You
been a
listen.
pleasure.
You and
Thank
I
you.
know this is the last time we're going to speak, and you made my day. And I'll be speaking about you to a lot of people. So if your ears ring, it's because Edward Paley is speaking about the special person that you are, Heather.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And this is definitely not, this is the end of this conversation, far from the end of our conversations, because I have truly and thoroughly enjoyed talking to you, getting to know you, and we're going to have so much more. So
Thank
thank
you.
you. And I want to
Enjoy the
say
rest of the day and the weekend.
thank
And
you.
please take it. See, I always tell people learn how to say no, learn how to take mental health days, and always
Yes,
take care of yourself.
yes,
Because if you take care of others, see, you can only help those who want help. And that's why I survived. Because,
absolutely.
if people don't want my help, we all make choices.
Yep.
But I learned how to say no, and I learned how to take mental health days and take care of me. Like I said, I get hugs from Ann, but I hug myself every day.
Yes,
When I dress for Edward. And I
yes.
look in the mirror and I say, I'm the only person I know who's still got a full head of hair and no bald spots. Because I wouldn't look good bald. And I
I
don't
love
want. So I say, people to stop me. Man, you have a nice. How old are you? So I
it.
enjoy that. I love my hair.
That's
I
great.
like.
It's great. And it's obvious that you love life. So I just love that. And again, I thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
to everybody watching, I want to say before I let you go, I'd love to invite you to download my free alignment workbook at heathermcnally.com. It's designed to help you uncover those beliefs, patterns, and conditioning that may be keeping you stuck so you can begin creating a life that feels more aligned, intentional, and authentically yours. Thank you so much for sharing the space today with me and with Edward. My hope is that you walk away knowing that you have that power to choose differently. Go live fully, freely, and unapologetically. Your life beyond BS starts now. I'm so grateful you were here today. Remember, your peace, joy, and happiness aren't found in the BS. They're found in your choices. If this episode spoke to you, please rate, review, follow, and subscribe, and share it with a friend. For ways to connect or work with me, check the show notes or visit heathermcnally.com. Until next time, keep choosing you and keep living your life beyond BS.